Thanks so much for staying there. Our daily graphic, the Ghanaian Times, a daily guide, the Finder, and the BNFT are the newspapers I have this morning. From the NDC leaked tape, Mahama defends Ufoswan Pofo, justifies attacks on Peace Council chair to prepare emergency plan. President tasks National Security and Interior Ministry and Council of State to meet President over import duties and taxes. That's the daily graphic. The Finder stays on the aluminium industry. Vibrant aluminium industry is a must. President charges Integrated Aluminium Development Corporation Board. That's the story. And you might have seen the documentary on child labor on the part of the Volta Lake. The government protest CNN documentary. Parties agree to collaborate on the sequel. If you've been following that, I'm sure you know why government is protesting. And the BNFT says PPA investigates botched snake antivenom procurement. The Ghanaian Times stays on the vigilantism issue. Catholic bishops slam vigilantes, call on public to promote peace and security, and secretary to the Inter-Ministerial Committee on Illegal Mining steps aside. Those are some of the stories I have this morning. My team for the discussion this morning, Eric Chum is a member of the NPP's team. Eric, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
And hope you had a good weekend.
I did. How about you?
It was fantastic.
You've gone into hibernation for
Yes, I went to the Western North region.
What was happening there?
Yeah, we're just visiting there. It's a new
lobbying
place.
for a position.
Maybe.
Tell us, we can lobby
that's
for
okay.
you.
I was in the Bodi district,
Okay.
visiting my people there.
Is that where you come from?
No.
Oh,
You know
okay.
me and my rural people.
Oh, okay.
All right, grateful. Thanks for joining us. And then I also have the NDC's team member here, Felix Chwachu-Fosu, a former deputy minister. Good morning.
Good morning.
And hope you're doing great.
I'm okay. I can't complain.
Thanks for joining us. Now, let's start our conversation. Let's take a look at this story. The Ghanaian Times this morning says that the secretary to the committee, the Inter-Ministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, has stepped aside. If we take a look at the story on page 17, it says that Mr. Charles Bisu has stepped aside from his position pending investigations into corruption allegations leveled against him. He's been cited for corruption and misconduct in a documentary by Tiger IPI titled Galamsey Fraud, an allegation he has vehemently denied. According to him, I would like to state at the very outset that I am innocent of the allegations leveled against me, as I was not and have not been engaged in any act of corruption, criminality, or misconduct, Mr. Bisu said in a release. He said that despite the denial, he has informed the president and chairman of IMCIM, Professor Frimpong Boateng, of his decision to step aside pending investigations into the allegations. He is welcoming government decision to get the matter investigated and express his readiness to avail himself at any time to the investigation process. That's the story carried by the Times and some other news. Eric, let me give you the chance to, first of all, to respond perhaps on the side of government. Some have suggested that apart from him stepping aside, government should relieve him of his job as a presidential staffer. What's your take?
Well, thank you very much. Good morning to yourself and then to Felix and also to the viewers out there. I think that when it comes to these things, it's important that we're very cautious in how it's approached. Especially, and I keep saying that because we've decided to pursue the rule of law and democracy as the basis for our governance, it's important that regardless of how we feel about issues, the processes that are meant to go through, one is meant to go through for you to be found guilty of something should be allowed to. Otherwise, we create a certain situation where people are unduly given certain tags, and essentially once somebody makes an allegation of wrongdoing, essentially guilty. So as far as I'm concerned, I think that Mr. Bisu has shown some resolve by actually deciding to step aside for investigations to continue. I also know for a fact that the Tiger IPI have actually stated that they've sent the evidence that they have to the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Mr. Bisu seems to believe strongly that the allegation that's been leveled against him is not the case, and that he has every right to also, as far as I'm concerned, to defend himself and get to the bottom of the matter, so that I believe strongly, especially the fight to stem the menace of Galamsey, which I believe strongly that every well-meaning Ghanaian would support, would continue. So again, you can come up with all sorts of reasons why maybe he should be relieved of his position as a presidential staffer and all of those things. But that, for me, it's something that is a prerogative of the president.
Is it good for the presidency to keep him?
But as we speak now, I would not even be able to tell if he's relieved of his position as a presidential staffer or not. But I'm saying that because the issue is actually out there in the public domain, and he has actually come out to step aside for investigations to continue, and then also has actually advocated for that to happen. I mean, and there's somebody who is saying that he's really not guilty of what he's been accused of, then let's allow the processes to continue, and then let's get to the point where once it's established that some culpability is established, then the ensuing either repercussions or whatever would come. So I don't have a challenge with that. I always believe that we need to give every single Ghanaian the opportunity to defend themselves. And sometimes when it does happen, when people are actually almost tried in the court of public opinion, in the court of domain, that suggests that once an allegation is made, you are guilty, is extremely dangerous. And it's because even if one innocent person is actually taken through a process and is actually convicted of something that they haven't done, that is a travesty of justice as far as I'm concerned. That's why it's imperative that we would stick to the processes, we adhere to the tenets of rule of law, and allow every Ghanaian to, as a citizen, to enjoy some of these rights that are, open to them. Now, once it's established that it's wrong, and I think that government position is very clear and was very categorical, that anybody found capable of indulging in any act that actually is in abeyance with the fight against Galamsey and is seen to have indulged in some kind of corrupt, fraudulent activity will be held accountable. As far as I'm concerned, the Office of Special Prosecutor is an agency under government, right? So if we are looking at it from that perspective, then that process itself has been activated so that whoever is found culpable, the evidence is adduced, they go there, they also bring their counter whatever arguments also, and if it's found that they have indulged in anything that should be punished, they should be punished.
I'm grateful. Felix, a legal practitioner, Mr. Martin Pebu, is arguing based on the fact that he thinks that, for instance, after the Brazil 2014 World Cup Commission, and which the then sports minister, Mr. Evisefi Yankra, was sent to the presidency, that decision hurt the Mahama administration. His argument, therefore, is that take Mr. Bisu out from the presidency.
Well, I think that Mr. Pebu and others completely misrepresent the facts when they speak that way. It's important that no adverse findings were made against Evisefi Yankra, following which he was sent to the Flagstaff House.
He was sent there before the
please, don't do this. Don't do this.
Please,
okay, all right.
Mr. Evisefi Yankra was the subject of a reshuffle during the 2014 World Cup. The World Cup had not ended when he was reshuffled from the Ministry of Sports to the presidency as a presidential staffer. The commission had not begun its work when he was reshuffled. So all those claims are blatantly false. It is propaganda churned out by MPP propagandists, which unfortunately appears to to have sunk into the heads of a number of people who constantly repeat it as if it is fact. So it is important that you use this platform to clarify that. That he was not sent to the presidency as a reward for any wrongdoing that he was found.
Okay. What about the argument that he should have taken him from the presidency after the commission?
Let me speak to the substantive point. You need to have established clear wrongdoing against the man. If it does not happen, you cannot say that he should be taken out of the Flagstaff House only because MPP propagandists are jumping over themselves and making claims. You understand the point I'm making? I'm saying that it is propaganda that unfortunately you in the media have failed to verify and constantly repeat. So once a clarification has been brought, you need to accept it and speak to the facts. So that's the point.
That's what I'm giving the
chance.
But
you see, the other point, you see, whatever it is that compels or compelled Mr. Bisu to resign from his position on the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining should compel him to resign his position also as presidential staffer. Unless he can say that he has not left his position on the Interministerial Committee as a result of the Anas expose.
That's exactly what.
But then it simply makes his continuous stay in government untenable. I agree with the fundamental premise that every man needs to be heard before he is condemned. At this stage, Mr. Bisu is not a subject of any legal proceedings. So his guilt or otherwise, in terms of a lawful process, has not been established. What we have are very credible allegations of corruption on his part. There is at least prima facie evidence to that effect. And once prima facie evidence is established, it serves as enough basis for some actions to be taken in fulfillment or in compliance with certain basic standards. And one of them is that you cannot continue to be in office whilst you remain under investigation. And it is something that has happened to many people. So an exception cannot be made for Mr. Bisu only because he's a member of the New Patriotic Party and works in the government of President Akufo-Addo. So I expect that, given that he has failed to resign honorably as a presidential staffer, President Akufo-Addo should relieve him of that position if he indeed is committed to fighting corruption. Except that it is something that may never happen.
Not because he's guilty of anything.
No, I'm saying that as for his guilt, in terms of law, it has to be done through a process. And I maintain that every man deserves a fair hearing, no matter what you are accused of. But that is a process that should come if indeed the president is committed to the fight against corruption. But before then, there are acceptable standards the world over. And Ghana cannot preclude itself from that. That when prima facie evidence of wrongdoing is established against you, in some jurisdictions, even the mere allegation alone is sufficient to get you to leave a certain position, pending full investigations and perhaps a legal process. If after a legal process you are deemed not to have committed the offense for which you were accused, you can always come back, or you can continue your life in the private sector or any other part of an national life that you did.
So can we say the video is
of course, but the video shows clearly that he has taken some money. It has become a subject of controversy. That controversy, in my view, is enough to warrant him leaving his position as presidential staffer. He has done so as a member of the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining. So I'm saying that whatever it is that informed that decision should also inform his decision to leave the presidency. It does not appear that he is willing to do so. So the onus now lies on the president, the appointing authority, to relieve him of his position, because it is a principle that has been applied to many before Mr. Bisu, and I'm sure will be applied to many after him. Except that when you look at the track record of this president, you do not get any confidence and hope that he will act. Because in the past, he has cleared people of wrongdoing, even when formal processes were still underway or were yet to be undertaken. He has put his neck on the line and robustly defended wrongdoing. The latest being the Oslo 8 million chancery scandal, where despite evidence available in the public domain, the president insisted that no wrongdoing had been done. In the Bust Moving Pinna scandal, despite glaring evidence of procurement breaches and clear violations of the law, including the MPA Act, which the MPA itself spoke to, the president insisted that no wrongdoing had been occasioned. In the Cash for Sea scandal, even as a parliamentary inquiry was ongoing and that committee had not finished its work, the president came out to dismiss the whole investigation and said that it will go nowhere, which clearly prejudiced the outcome of that particular investigation. So when you consider the fact that the president has not been willing in previous instances to crack the whip, but he has sought to defend the wrongdoing, it leaves one to wonder whether or not there will be an exception in the Charles Bisu matter. Otherwise, principle would dictate that the man leaves his position pending any thorough investigation. He speaks about the special prosecutor office. Well, the special prosecutor as far as we know, has not acted in the last year or so. There's no indication that he will act. I recall that when
he's been petitioned.
Well, when the Metro Mass scandal occurred, he came out to say that he will look into it. Up to date, there's no update at all on where we are in terms of what has happened. The moving Pina scandal too, he was petitioned. Nothing has come out of it. So there's a tall list of cases that he has not dealt with, which then leaves one wondering whether or not anything at all will emanate from the office. I don't think that government has done enough to address this problem. The last time government spoke, they said they were asking for the full rations, the whole unedited tape to be given to them before they act. But the point is that it is not government's business to go and ask for the full tips. It is the business of the investigative bodies to ask for the tape when investigations commence. Why? In the Nyantechi case, even before the video had been aired, the president reported him purportedly to the police CID for investigation. So why is it different on this matter when it involves one of his own? But you see, cast this aside, you find that ever since that number 12 video, ever since Anas aired it, and it showed portions where Mr. Kwesi Nyantechi was saying that if you wanted to obtain contracts in Ghana, you can give the president some 5 million, you can give the vice president some 3 million, and some other monies to other government officials. Essentially saying that there's a bribe collection syndicate at the presidency. The entire government and MPP apparatus has been unleashed on Anas Ameria Anas. He has come under constant and suddenly...
That's an allegation
Well, it's not an allegation. Listen. I mean, but the evidence is clear. Presidential employees are all over social media castigating Anas, calling into question his methods. No less a person than Gabriel Chedakun, who is known to be very, very close to the president and very, very influential in the scheme of things.
Eric, I'll get you the chance to react, please.
Mr. Chedakun, who is a known power broker in this government, has come out to list 10 things that he says are questions that Anas should answer. Suddenly, he is questioning the very methods that they approved of when they were in opposition. I mean, you recall the 2012 debate where President Akufo-Addo categorically stated that he would apply the Anas principle in fighting corruption, and how subsequently Gabriel Chedakun himself and several MPP commentators and functionaries splashed that all over their social media handles and spoke to it extensively in the media and indicated that that was the chosen path that the MPP will apply in the fight against corruption. It has turned out that that so-called Anas principle was in fact just another afterthought, flowery rhetoric, which the president's aides obviously scribbled for him to go and recite when he had no belief or conviction in it. Otherwise, why should the same principle, when it is applied to MPP members or the president himself and his appointees, become a subject of controversy? If you believed in the principle yesterday, why are you different today? Only because it affects your government. So honestly, this matter has not been handled well. I do not have any confidence at all unless they prove me wrong, and I'll relish the prospect of they proving me wrong. I don't think that on the evidence of what you've seen so far from this president, he is willing or able to act on this matter any better than he has done in the past.
Eric, please come in. He insists on a principle that he says must be applied here. If your reaction and any other issue you want to react.
I'm actually surprised that Felix decided to go that route to start with. One, it is not true that Mr. Elvis Efrianka was reshuffled. When the infamous Brazil saga was playing out, which became one of the biggest embarrassment for this country, he was actually promoted from Minister of Youth and Sports into the presidency, even before the commission, the so-called commission, was set up. And what did they do?
So
there?
you agree
they went to,
the commission was not in before
they went to the commission to cry. Everybody knows it's obvious for all Ghanaians to see exactly what actually transpired at the commission. In any case, nothing happened even when the commission finished its job in terms of the recommendations that happened and all of those things. Now, so it's totally false to even create the perception that Mr. Ankara was reshuffled and all of those things. That is not the case. Again, to start with, so that principle that today Felix is actually clamoring for did not happen under their watch. They did not show, there's no evidence of any value and principle in the matter when it comes to these things. In any case, Mr. Ankara did not do what Mr. Charles Bisu has done by actually coming out and actually stepping aside. You understand? Stepping aside as Minister of Sports, right? Before he got to the airport, he had been promoted. Again, this idea...
he had been removed from the sports. How was he going to step aside?
Listen, this idea, but that was, you know what it is. I mean, I'm not going to even go into that. This idea that it lies in Felix's mouth to actually establish a prima facie case. It's the first time I've heard this.
The video doesn't.
No, the video, it doesn't lie between me and you to establish a prima facie case. There are procedures, there are processes that you have to go through for the Attorney General to establish that there's prima facie on this particular issue before they even go to court. And I'm saying that Anas himself has actually petitioned the Office of the Special Prosecutor. As far as I'm concerned, I sit here. The Office of the Special Prosecutor is an agency under government. So that process itself has been activated. Again, you see, I'm surprised that he went the route of talking about clearing of people and all of those things. You see, when you do that, and then you sit back and then you say that, well, you are actually somebody who actually is a consummate Democrat and you believe in the rule of law, it doesn't sit well with me. One, every single thing that he actually mentioned in terms of allegations that were made by certain individuals went through a process. He was talking about cash for seats. It went through a parliamentary process. The other ones that he mentioned and all of those things are things that actually went through a process, were investigated, and it was found that these people were not culpable. Again, the mere fact that an allegation has been made does not mean that that person is guilty. It has to go through a process, and that process was actually done. It was investigated, and it was found out that when a flock of guinea fowls flying from Ghana into Burkina Faso, what was the position of the NDC when a sitting president took a gift or a bribe, if you like, from a contractor who, within 2-3 months after receiving that, actually got a contract in this country? The Subes, the GDES, all the scandals that actually ensued, at the point where we actually had to take 3.2 million Ghana cedis of our money to paint pictures of former presidents on the bus and all of those. That is the track record of the NDC. You know, so when they go this route and you realize that all the things that they're doing is politics as usual and actually trying to create a certain perception that this is something that government is doing to protect certain individuals. I think that even in the issue of Galamsey, what is the track record of the NDC? It was under the NDC that the issue of Galamsey became rife in this country, where our environment, our water bodies and everything was actually dissipated to a certain point where our water bodies were not fit for us to consume. You understand? So this is a government that has shown commitment. And again,
quickly, wrap up. Let me get
government has been categorical in its statement, saying that any effort by any individual or group or organization to help with the fight against Galamsey is welcome.
Okay.
And the first step has been taken. And I believe strongly that this issue about Anas is also a matter of individual rights, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, quickly react to it. He says that this Anas principle thing is beginning to see a change.
Because it is erroneous to also sit here and suggest that Ghanaians, citizens of this country, have absolutely no right to interrogate the methods and the procedures of Anas. That will be disingenuous in stature, because this is a democracy that we are running. As far as I'm concerned.
What has changed in the Anas
nothing has changed, but the thing is that...
It's the same thing.
Listen, the president is committed to that, and he has stated categorically that when anybody is found culpable of any wrongdoing, he would act. Okay. Apart from that, government has come and established a position, which is that anybody who is helping in the fight against Galamsey is welcome. Again, it is not wrong for anybody to suggest that the methods that is being used by Anas should not unduly infringe on the rights of other Ghanaians. There's absolutely no wrong with that. I believe strongly that when we do that and we interrogate the procedure and the processes and the methods that is being used by ANAS, it would actually enrich our democracy. In any case, people have had a school of thought that says that, listen, the person that is actually soliciting is guilty. The person who is actually also giving the bribe is also guilty.
Okay.
That is a principle that some people have established. And I'm saying that, well, if somebody goes out there and says that I feel that this method is actually akin to entrapment, they have every right to do so, and that's why we have.
But what do
the
you
law
think? Is there something wrong with the ANAS principle?
It's not my personal.
But you are the one. That's what I'm asking.
It's not my
He
personal.
thinks that you are attacking the
Listen,
principle.
nobody. There is no.
You're not attacking it.
Listen,
there's
no
nothing wrong with it.
Effort or no concerted attempt by government to denigrate the image of ANAS, but individuals, either they are MPP, NDC, or ordinary citizens of this country, CPP or whatever, have every right to interrogate
the methods used
the
by
methods used by
Eric,
others,
I'm
and that
grateful.
shouldn't be.
Phyllis, come in, but I'm taking a break, so be brief about it. The key thing he says that we'll come back. Come in. The key thing he says is that you said the video provides that prima facie evidence. He says it's not.
Well, of course, it is yet another difference of corruption. That's what he's done.
No, how?
Please,
no, but
please,
Eric, you allow him to go, then we can take a break and come back.
The video shows clearly that the man is receiving consideration in exchange for the circumvention of the rules governing the licensing of mining companies to undertake mining. That is what the video says. And that's
so is it a prima facie evidence?
Yes, but that's what it is.
We don't need the legal persons to do it.
I think that is not fair.
Eric, you allow me. So you think we don't need the legal...
Look, I'm saying that, of course, even if I chance upon you with a smoking gun and Eric is found dead on the floor, okay, I can only claim that you are responsible for the murder. But to establish your guilt and throw you into prison, a certain process has to be undertaken. The beginning of that process is for you to be taken into custody and an investigation commenced. The beginning of dealing with people accused of corruption is to let them stand aside from the office they are holding in order that the investigations can continue. And again, I see that he's trying to seek solace in the falsehood about Elvis Free-Ankra. Elvis was not promoted. A presidential staffer is equivalent to a minister if you look at the organogram of government. So if you are reshuffled from a ministerial portfolio and you are made a presidential staffer, you have not been promoted. You've only been taken from one portfolio to another. Again, that happened in June of 2014, before the commission was set up. He was part of a general reshuffle. I was moved from information ministry to communications ministry. So it is not true that he was promoted. Second, why? Eric himself, was he not the subject of an investigation at the Ghana Export Promotion Agency after some allegations of wrongdoing were leveled against him and his boss? He was removed, and now he's at the Ministry of Information as a government spokesperson. Would he say that he has been rewarded for that alleged act of corruption? So why is he applying a different standard to Elvis Free-Ankra? If he can be removed from one agency on the back of allegations of corruption and sent to another ministry to perform a certain role, why is he precluding others from doing so? Except, of course, you establish conclusively that he was guilty of the offense and perhaps he should have gone to jail and he's been brought to a ministry. So I don't think that it is fair.
That is the same principle.
But the point is that, okay, yes, but the point is that,
that's the whole point.
Listen. In the case of Charles BCU, we have seen him take money in a tape. The person who did the tape is saying that he took this money in order to assist me circumvent the process to acquire a license. So wrongdoing has been alleged against him. Now he has resigned from his position as secretary to this committee, and yet remains
investigations.
And yet remains as presidential staff. And I'm saying that position is untenable. The same principle that informs his resignation from that committee must inform his resignation from the office of presidential staff. The final other point is that he claims that there is no concerted effort to attack ANAS. Yet you know that it is not true. I mentioned to you that officials of government, people who are employed at the presidency, are leading attacks on ANAS. Their bosses are aware of this. Look, Kennedy Japan.
Because of what is the evidence?
You say what? No,
is he on the point of government or a member of the political party?
Listen, when a government has a certain position, no employee of that government has a right to...
Okay, so based on that,
if you do that and your bosses don't sanction it means that they approve of it. So, of course, I don't expect the president himself or the vice president or even a to come out and say that ANAS is this, ANAS is that, or launch direct attacks on him. By why? John Kuma, who is an employee of this government, has gone on record to attack Anas's motives and principles and
but
methods.
if he does,
I am taking a break. I'm taking a break.
Actually,
I'm taking a break.
The final point before you go, you see, all the questions relating to Anas's methods, all the questions being asked today, were relevant before President Akufo-Addo associated himself with that principle. But because of politics of convenience, he thought that as for the customs officers and the people involved in cocoa smuggling who were exposed by Anas, they didn't need to have the benefit of questions asked about the methods.
Okay.
So he approved it and endorsed it. And then when it is applied to him and his government, suddenly they find problems with it.
I am
the
grateful.
reason why they are doing this
I am grateful.
is that the president was mentioned in the anti-cheating.
I'm grateful. The Council of State is said to be
The
meeting the president
report
over
mentioned
import
was
duties and
Muhammad,
taxes.
right?
When we return, we'll take a look at that and how that is expected to deal with the high import duties that certain business organizations are complaining about. Stay there. We're back in a minute.
Aya woti ya wo be mem ana ya imo hyehyew wo sensu fitaa bi firi mu ba ugunsu ntentem ana ya ugunsu a na emu ache woti ya wo sabe wa ya ase esese wo bobirim se bi ana wo prostate ana hu aba hawo aya na wonsa na ase wo na ya ye titiri waposo tutu wonante a na wa ye dududu aya ase bibi ne na mo widie mu ebia na stroke yade na ebo won kaye endpoint homeopathic clinic e wonim die ode beboa wo Endpoint, our Accra, Spinters Road, Shell Signboard, Tema, Committee 22, Koanaso Hotel Echi, Kumasi Kronoma Buenya Angel School Complex. Sakra Day, Endpoint, our Anaji Queen of Peace, inside, Anaji Police Station Newspaer. Techimine, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, our Hensa, and Nick Just Bro Filling Station, and a Dean Shanimu. For Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, our 0244 867 068.
Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. I'm free.
Introducing Nestle Milo All-in-One Nutrimix. The goodness of malt, milk and cocoa in Milo, and even more milk. Just add to water and enjoy the perfect cup of winning energy.
Milo! Milo!
Are you a food vendor or a manufacturer of food and drink products or a hotel operator? Join the Independence Day Food Bazaar on Wednesday, 6th of March 2019 at the Accra Tourist Information Center opposite the Flagstaff House as thousands of people gather to enjoy the sumptuous taste of Ghana. The Mirror and TV3 in collaboration with the National Independence Day Planning Committee and the Ghana Tourism Authority are organizing the biggest Independence Day Food Bazaar in Accra. This Independence Day at the Accra Tourist Information Center opposite the Flagstaff House. So food vendors, manufacturers of local juices, local food joints, hotels, FMCGs and interested parties should call the following lines to register: 0244 266 006 or 0202 334 337. Come with your family and loved ones to enjoy delicious meals at the Independence Day Food Bazaar at the Accra Tourist Information Center opposite the Flagstaff House on Wednesday, the 6th of March. The Independence Day Food Bazaar. Food is ready and hot.
The business world can be very dark and confusing, but with the right information from the experts, things get clearer.
There is a dichotomy between how much we earn as a producing country and how much the international market throws at us.
Once you always import more than you export, your CD will fall.
And it gets inspirational when we hear the success stories of other entrepreneurs.
Natural coconut water. This time around, they've modified how the coconut is being done.
Even though we've not been producing at large scale, we took about 2 years to get the actual branding well done. I'm actually looking at exporting these products.
Business Focus makes the business world less confusing and more inspiring.
For all your economic and business analysis, including updates on the commodities and stock market, as well as the exchange rate, join with us on every Monday at 6 p.m. only on Business Focus. My name is Pakus Yasari.
Business Focus, inspiring business growth.
is a 3FM Drive. Promises to be fun-packed with trending fun facts, exclusive personality interviews, music to calm your stress, and of course our hardcore pranks and many, many more. Join us on the 3FM Drive. Ease your way through traffic with 3FM. Give your late afternoon drive a sense of humor with a 3FM Drive. That's right! Hello everyone, my name is Giovanni Caleb, and live here on 3FM, I bring to you the 3FM Drive. Weekdays, 2 p.m. till 5:30 p.m. Right here on 3FM 92.7. Your late afternoon radio time just got better.
Let's go to the daily graphic. A Council of State to meet President over import duties and taxes. This week, that's a story. The Council of State already has gone into some consultations with some groups, the GRA, the Customs Division of GRA, GUTA, and several others. Now, after going into that consultation, the Council is expected to meet the President and place before him their recommendations to review import duties and taxes. Government says several measures have been put in place to deal with this issue. Reforms at the port, including the deepening of the digitization of the clearing system to seal the loopholes. And this is a job the Council of State has undertaken. Having sought the consultations with these groups, it is now ready to tell the President what can be done to review this. Eric, the complaints and the consultations, I'm sure, might have achieved some level of, let me say, agreement. And so the Council of State now says we need to tell the President and suggest how to deal with this problem. Right way, I guess.
Well, I mean, the Council of State is there to play a certain significant role when it comes to, one, advising the President on major issues concerning the country. So as far as I'm concerned, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Issues to do with import duties and taxes are quite contentious. And it is because of the fact that I think over the period, we all agree that we have been wholly dependent on imports of even products that I think that we've always had the capacity to produce locally. That has, in a way, affected the city in terms of how strong it is, because the clamor for city to bring in these goods has always been a case, apart from the exigencies of the international market, which also affects the stability of our currency. Now, so if the Council of State, by interacting with the various agencies and stakeholders, are able to come out with an action plan that would, one, look at how government can support businesses that are wholly hinged on the importation of these goods, but also even moving a bit further to look at how we can start looking at a whole restructuring of the economy. Over the weekend, I was having this conversation about the city, which has become quite a topic nowadays because of the stability of this currency itself. And I think that it was established that really we can't keep doing the same thing over and over again, regardless of what you say politically. I mean, this is economics, you understand? So when it comes to political commentary and all of those things, and political debates, you can say all sorts of things. But I don't see how we can be able to maintain a stable city if we don't come together consentedly to say that, listen, this is what we want to do to restructure our economy. That insatiable appetite to consume everything imported would have to be stemmed in a way. One, how do we do that? By starting to look at products and things that we can actually produce locally, consume locally, and even create a system that will be able to export these products. Otherwise, what we do normally is that even the actions that have been taken over the period where some monies are pumped into the economy, which actually has a certain interim effect. But essentially what tends to happen is that the more dollars that is pumped into the economy, the speculators will mop it up over a few weeks or months, right, in anticipation for another increase. You understand? So what happens is that the effect itself becomes temporary. But if you look at it from a more strategic standpoint, and we say that this is what we want to do as a country, we've had conversations surrounding rice, importation, and other things that, as far as I'm concerned, the very first day that we are pragmatic and strong about it, we can start developing a local rice industry if we want. But this conversation surrounding the import duties and all that becomes extremely sensitive, because you also have businesses and businessmen who whole livelihoods are dependent on the importation of these goods and then, of course, selling them to the local market. So as we speak, it means that we have to look at it from a concurrent standpoint. How do we develop? How do we, for instance, tap into the government's One District, One Factory initiative, for instance, to make sure that all the investments that are coming in, all the factories that are coming in are establishments that would actually create import substitution industries so that we don't import as much? Are we able to create the right quality and standards so that we can actually produce these products in high quantities, benefit from the economies of scale that comes with it, and export, for instance, so that as we go along, we will start producing things locally, we will start consuming locally produced goods, so that this issue to do with the dollar and the cedi and how it's actually essentially open to the exigencies of the world market becomes a thing of the past. Again, even apart from that, making sure that whilst we get to that point, we have a long-term strategy for our oil and gas sector, for instance. So this whole idea that over the last 30 years or so, we haven't been able to either improve the capacity of TOR, for instance, to be able to refine our crude, or even if TOR, for one reason or the other, has become obsolete, then let's create a new entity or something, and we position TOR to be able to do so. So that, because we have the advantage of now being able to produce crude locally, the amount of money that we actually use to import the finished product will be reduced. That becomes a more strategic conversation. But I mean, on this particular issue, I back the Council of State by taking the initiative. I think that even during the President's interaction with the media, even went as far as to suggest that there are calls to make Ghana an duty-free country. He made that call, and that there are consultations going on. As to how that fits into a long-term strategic plan, I'm sure that the economic management team and other experts will take a look at that.
Okay. Felix, so the Council of State has gone round, spoken to the finance minister, spoken to several stakeholders. The key thing is how potent the recommendations will be in reducing these taxes.
All right. I mean, the president is entitled to hold any number of meetings that he so pleases, or any number of consultations that he so desires. The reality is that the fullness of time has exposed him and the MPP as not possessing any extraordinary abilities to manage the economy or the affairs of the nation, as they promised in 2016. I mean, we all remember the rather haughty, deeply exaggerated claims about their competence and abilities, and how they were going to ensure that the exchange rate remains stable, how they were going to ensure that import duties were reduced, how they were not going to borrow, but were going to be able to mobilize domestic resources to develop the nation, and what have you. All of that has turned out to be empty talk, and the reality on the ground has badly exposed them. To begin with, all the problems that we are having now have stemmed from their own policies and interventions. The astronomical increases in import duties, which is the subject of the work of the Council of State, stems directly from government policy. They have introduced two new measures. There's one they call the benchmark system, which has completely changed the way in which duty is assessed and calculated. And then there's a cargo tracking notes, which GUTA and other importing organizations have strongly kicked against and indicated that it has led to huge increases in import duty assessments. You recall in 2017 how the finance minister played to the gallery, standing in parliament and claiming that import duties were going to be reduced, and how importers at Abosoka and elsewhere leapt for joy and were expectant of massive drops in the rate of import duties, only to have a situation where import duties go up. In some instances, they say that it has gone up by as much as 75%. And this has considerably undermined their business and left them no option than to pass on the cost to you and I, and we are suffering for it. So you don't need the Council of State to meet the president for him to know that his own policies have resulted in the increases in import duties, and so he should simply do something about them. He should simply reduce them, take away those policies that have led to the increases. There's been enough
in the back of revenue mobilization.
Again,
revenue.
Speaking about revenue, the president was fully aware that revenue needed to be mobilized in 2016 when he went ahead to claim that he could mobilize that revenue without increasing taxes. You also recall the song and dance they made about taxation and how they pilloried the then NDC government and insisted that they could manage affairs better without increasing taxes. Today, because of their direct imposition of tax, people are suffering. They have increased VAT by 5%. And that has led to an increase in the cost of production for businesses and manufacturers who have then passed it on to you and I. And that is why we have had huge increases in the price of goods and commodities. In addition to that, they've introduced the luxury car tax, which compels one to pay between 1,000 to 2,000 Ghana cedis if you have a vehicle with an engine capacity of above 2.99 cc. And this is also leading to very, very serious problems for you and I, those of us who have cars and have to renew our roadworthy certificates annually. They've introduced a number of taxes as well. Look, the special import levy, they promised that they were going to remove it. They've left the 2% component, and that rakes in about 85% of the revenue that tax is supposed to bring in. The National Fiscal Stabilization Levy, which was introduced in 2013, but which had a sunset clause, which said that by December 31st, 2017, it should go. They've retained it, and so it is essentially a new tax. If you roll over a tax, it is a new tax. So they have introduced that.
But the others that they reduce, the financial transaction taxes, it doesn't.
Eric, you like it. It's not right. You do that. I keep quiet for you. And all you do is start to. Look, if you check their manifesto, I think page 17 or so, they promised that they were going to reduce corporate tax from 25% to 20%. In the 2017 budget, the finance minister pleaded for time. He said that they would do that in 2018. In the 2018 budget, he said he had deferred that to 2019. In the 2019 budget, he said nothing about it. So it remains at 25%, despite having promised that it will go to 25%. If you add up all of these, that is what accounts for the steep increases in import duties and taxes that people are talking about. Again, look at the depreciation of the cedi. And I'm surprised that it is not one of the subjects that the Council of State is interested in to discuss with the president. Look at the depreciation of the cedi. Look at the noise that Dr. Bawumia and the president made about the depreciation of the cedi. And indeed, they actually reduced the entire management of the economy or the assessment of its health to the exchange rate. According to Dr. Bawumia, if you are in doubt about the competence of those managing the economy, check the exchange rate. He said that you can do all the propaganda you like in the world, but the exchange rate will expose you. Today, the exchange rate has exposed him, President Akufo-Addo, and the entire MPP government as persons who do not possess the wherewithal and know-how to manage the economy. So today you need like 5.5 Ghana cedis to obtain a dollar. You need 7.2 or 7.3 Ghana cedis to obtain a British pound. And this is wreaking havoc on businesses and Ghanaian households. Finally, let's talk about the issue of borrowing. It is important because it dovetails into the overall management of the economy. These are people who came waxing lyrical about how they can manage the affairs of the country without borrowing. As for Dr. Bawumia, he said he had worked at the Bank of Ghana, so he knew that we had resources in this country. We didn't need to borrow. And that borrowing was the lazy man's approach to economic management. Today, what have they done? They have ballooned our debt from 120 billion to 172 billion as of November 2017. 2018, I beg your pardon. And as I speak to you, our debt to GDP ratio, they mislead the public that our debt to GDP ratio has reduced from 73% to 58%. It is not true. It has actually increased from 55.6% in 2016 to almost 58%. So they have gotten it wrong with the economic management of this country. And they should simply admit it and stop wasting our time.
Can you give me
just 5 seconds?
Yeah. Listen, this is a government. This is an NDC government that actually took us to the IMF.
We have
Let me
recognize that 15 times.
You told me I was interrupting you. So we
I'm
grateful. I need to wrap up. Eric Chubu is a member of the NPP. Phyllis Kwacho Fosu is a member of the NDC.